Welcome to Unschooling Conversations. Today I am joined by Alice, and in this episode, Alice is going to share a little bit with us about how her unschooled sons have moved into adulthood. And we have just remembered that Alice has, in fact, done two previous, or joined me twice previously on Unschooling Conversations. And one of those was about teenagers and unschooling teenagers. So this is kind of like a little update for those that remember that episode, or you can obviously go back and look through the archives. It's still there. My name's Heidi Steel. I'm a former teacher and unschooling parent to 4 children, and even I have to pause now because I can't say 4 school-age children because some of them are have aged out, but they're still mine, and they are still happy and living and learning as they go. I have been unschooling for 14 years and blog regularly and organise coaching courses and mentoring services on unschooling, which you can find out more about at liveplaylearn.org. But for now, hi Alice, would you like to introduce yourself for those who have not had the pleasure of listening to you before?
Of course, yes. Hello. Thank you, Heidi, and thanks for inviting me to join you on the podcast again. I'm Alice. I live in Coventry, and I've been unschooling myself alongside my 4 sons for a long time. I think I deregistered them from school in January 2010. Um, and my eldest is now 23. We took him out of school when he was 7. Um, and the others are 20, can't even remember how old they are, Heidi, 22,
Well, I never know.
19, and 13. So I'm still, well, my youngest continues to learn from home. The older 3 now have all graduated, if you like, from my organic education program.
Yeah, and a lot of people that listen to the podcast, and a lot of people that I work with have much younger children. So, kind of that 7-year-olds that they're deregistering, or for whatever reason, they're finding themselves home educating and looking at unschooling. And they could be wondering, well, why do I need to why do I need to listen to this? My child is only 7. Um, and as much as you're probably in the thick of it right now, it does come around. Like, I'm surprised at how quickly. I think we first recorded a podcast in 2021, and all our children were school age. And now you've got 3 who are much older, slightly older than
Yeah.
mine, early 20s. But I've got 2 now that have um let's use the word graduated. It's a very schooly word, isn't it? But they are officially coming out of what would be education. I'm pulling a face as I say that for people that are listening. um but yeah, so we're going to talk about, well, you're going to share with us that kind of moving into adulthood when our children have been self-directed and unschooled. Um, yeah, I'd be interested to know what we talked about on the teenagers one. It would have been interesting to maybe reference back a little bit. But what can you share with us from your wisdom and your experience, Alice, or your experience?
I think it is nice, isn't it, for people to hear about how unschooled children grow up and, different stories of their transitions into adulthood. And I think it's quite reassuring and hopefully a bit inspiring to know that, you know, they're okay.
They're okay. I know, it's okay. They're going to be
They turn out
okay.
okay. And
Yeah.
that there are just different pathways to adulthood that, reflect our diverse young people. And I know when my kids were younger, I always liked to hear from people whose kids were older because it was reassuring to know that there were people kind of further down the road, and to hear those kind of stories. So I hope that people will find some encouragement. Um, So yeah, my eldest son, who I took out of school at 7, um, I always say because the light went out in his eyes, and it was like that for me. I saw that happen, and I thought, no, I'm not having that. He's 7. This is not okay. And so we started out on this kind of path into organic education and just followed the questions that our children were asking and the things that life threw at us and things we encountered in our community. Um, and yeah, he was a very autonomous, self-directed learner, always, actually, my eldest son. And really it was him, I think, that showed me how to be an unschooler. He was the one who kind of was pushing me out of the way, and I realized that I just needed to step back and allow him the freedom to learn in the way that he needed to learn, which was not the way that at that point I thought we should be doing
Mm.
the learning. He was very um, messy, very hands-on, very practical, very chatty. Also, always learned a lot from discussion and conversation with people. Um, but also, he always had his own agenda. He always, would tell me at the beginning of the day, "This is what I'm doing today, Mum." And regardless of what I had in mind, he was on his own track. And we used to clash because, it took some time for me to understand that if I got out of the way, actually, amazing things happen.
Amazing and beautiful things happen. It's quite often the
Absolutely.
way as well, isn't it? That it's
Yeah.
usually one of our, one of our children, if you've got multiple children, it's usually the children that kind of lead that way, like show you, like this is what I'm doing, and if you can kind of respond to that and take a step back and kind of see what happens and what's possible when you do step back, they're the ones that more often than not show us, oh my gosh, this is a really beautiful thing. Like this is happening. Look, they're enjoying what they're doing and they're
Yeah.
discovering stuff and they're excited and that light comes back on. You haven't said it, but I bet it did.
Absolutely. Yeah, it did. Absolutely right. And he rediscovered yeah, that kind of curiosity and interest in pursuing the questions that he was asking. And yeah, we did. We saw the light come back on, and he yeah, he was I always say really he was the one that led us into unschooling, really. Um and I was always amazed, Heidi, at what he was doing. It was always way beyond anything that I could have planned or, kind of envisaged. It was deep stuff, amazing stuff. And all my children have followed such different paths. They've all got such different passions. It was not things that I knew about, and that's not something to be afraid of. It means you can go on a learning journey together, and actually they show you all these amazing things that you never would have discovered otherwise. So he's an engineer now, and always was an engineer, really. Um, so it's quite wonderful for me now to see how he's emerged into adulthood. I can still see the curious 7-year-old exploring all the things that he used to take apart. And he said to me recently, he said, "Mum, I play every day." That's his job.
Oh,
To me,
yeah.
that was such a lovely thing to hear, because really that was what I always wanted for them. I wanted them to find work that lit them up, work that they love, work that really suited them and that was aligned with their interests. And I think that that's something I see in my sons, is this self-knowledge, because they've had the freedom to explore the things that are really of interest and the things that light them up, the things that they want to pursue. There's a kind of self-knowledge which gives a confidence. Um, so, for example, I had a conversation with my 19-year-old recently about the possibility of university, right? As a like this is something that maybe you could consider, possibly. And he's like, no, I don't want to go to university. I don't like academic study, mum. I have no inclination to do that kind of any more of that kind of studying. And it was just said with such a certainty.
Are you curious about unschooling and want to know more? Perhaps you're on the edge of starting this adventure, or maybe you've been doing this a while, but you're looking for inspiration. After more than 13 years of unschooling 4 children and over 5 years supporting others on the same path, I have a vast library of resources that I'm happy to share with you for free, whatever stage of your journey you're in. You can check out the link in the description of the podcast, or you can head over to my website at liveplaylearn.org and look for the free resources tab. And there you will find lots of things to inspire you to keep living, learning and playing together. I said that the wrong way round, didn't I? Anyway, it's also a great way to make sure that you don't miss an episode of the podcast, which we will get back to now. We have similar conversations here, and I find it interesting because we talk about deschooling, and particularly when people first come out of school and children first come out of school and adults. And for me, that's it's one of those things I have to remember is like an ongoing process, and sometimes it kind of rears its ugly head when I mention, oh, have you considered a GCSE, we've kind of had that conversation, or an A-level, or a thing, or should we look at colleges and what they have to offer? And they're so know themselves so well, they're like, no. And it's like that's the end of the conversation, and it's me that takes a breath and goes, oh, you sure? I just want to have a little look. That kind of checking myself, but they don't they don't have to check themselves. They know, they're like, that's not for me right now, mum. I've got other things going on. That's not. Yeah. And I know it's something that people talk about, what about GCSEs, which are entirely possible, because as you said, there's no one route. It is entirely possible to be unschooled and to do GCSEs if that's on the cards, and if that's something that's needed and wanted and they're able to do. That's not something that's happened. Not something that's happened here yet.
No, and it's not something that has to happen, and it's not something that has to happen at a particular time, is it? That's the other thing, is that you might, if your child wants to do some GCSEs, you can do them much more gradually, or you can spread them out over more years, or they might do them later. Some children do them earlier. I mean, it's just that flexibility and freedom to just do things at the time that's right for the child, which is one of the beauties of unschooling, isn't it? Is that you can just go at the child's pace. You haven't got this almost like a conveyor belt that with certain timings for things.
And having to know things in a different way. So we've talked about our children having this self-knowledge, but other children in mainstream school have to kind of know what they want to do now, potentially for the rest of it, not for the rest of their life, because we know that's not a truth. But it's made to feel like that. You have to choose these subjects now. You have to take this exam now. You have to make a decision about your career or your job, now, because we have to have it all figured out. And it's quite rigid. There isn't any flexibility. Whereas I find with my guys, there's lots of kind of exploring different things actually, and having to go at different things, and that might take us so far, and then they go and have a look at, and they start doing something else, and there's much more fluidity about what they're doing, and much more ease, and it feels like they've got time to explore what those things might look like. Yes, I mean,
Yeah.
we're in a different place in that mine haven't made any career choices yet. But as we've said, yours are a little bit older as well. Um, I wonder how
Yeah.
that came around, particularly with your eldest, like how he moved into that, into where he is now, like what that's looked like over the past few years, I guess.
Yeah, it's been really interesting because they've all got very different interests and they're different people, so they've all forged quite different pathways. Um, and it's been good. It's been good for me to realize, it does, even at that age, kind of force you continually to reconsider what is the next thing, because even I mean I've been unschooling for many years, yet still in our heads comes the, oh, but what about college? Oh, but what about GCSE or two? And like you're continually having to, it's that process, isn't it, of deschooling yourself continually, even as
Mhm.
they emerge into adulthood. In fact, I found that the years when they were sort of 16, um, was some of the hardest for me in terms of having to undo a lot of my thinking. And again, as we said, it's our children really that lead us to show us that there are so many different ways. So my eldest he did do GCSEs, and actually chose to go into a local university technical college to do those, because it had an engineering focus. And as I said, he was always very motivated in an engineering field. Um, but he went at 16, he got an apprenticeship. So he started work at 16, in an engineering environment, and it was really good. The apprenticeship was brilliant for him because he got to experience lots of different areas of engineering, and see what he liked and what he enjoyed. As I said, he was always very practical and hands-on, so it really suited him, and he just really enjoyed being in a work environment, and learning from, older engineers around him. He's brilliant at networking, so he met so many people through that apprenticeship. And from there, he's gone on to another role in battery manufacture. Um, but he's so inventive and creative, and he invented this device for the production line in the manufacturing plant that he works in, and has built it. And it
Wow.
brings together like so many different elements, coding and design, and also like innovation and the ability to see a problem and look for a solution. So many things, so many seeds that I could see through his unschooling journey, kind of coming to fruition in the workplace. Really wonderful. And he is also, my eldest, quite academic. So he wanted, as he's gone on in work, he's realised actually he does need a degree to be an engineer. So he didn't do A levels. He did, through work, through the apprenticeship, an HNC, HND, and then to get his BEng, he needed to do 2 years of university study, which he's done by distance learning alongside his job. So it's been really good because it's been much more flexible.
Yeah.
He hasn't had the same level of debt as he would have had if he'd just gone to university. And and he's enjoyed it because it's kind of grounded in what he's doing at work. And the device that he invented became his final year project for his degree. So actually, we've got his university graduation in a few weeks. So he's just graduated with first class honours, which he will be very pleased about.
Oh,
But it just shows you that, that's just, it's not that that's the goal, because it isn't for all young people, but for him, it's been an amazing journey really to see that little 7-year-old engineer that he was develop to this point. And he's
also, like it's really interesting just hearing you talk about even how he's undertaken this degree. That's not like a traditional, you do your GCSEs, you do your A levels, then you go away to university and you do a degree, and then and then you graduate, and then you go into work. Like even just the process of getting that degree is not standard, and it's not something that people hear about. That even the process of getting a degree doesn't have to be I get into massive loads of debt and I go, and I go and go wherever and do to university and spend my whole time there. Like it's there are lots of different ways of acquiring the qualifications, whatever they might be.
Yes, that's
Um,
absolutely
there
right.
isn't
Set
a set
route.
route.
No, no.
Yeah.
And I think we don't hear enough about that. So it's important, for people to understand that actually there are different ways and different pathways. And actually a really interesting thing about his route as well was that he went for a job in his current firm before he'd got his degree. So he was working towards it. This was last year. And he wanted to apply for a position in the company, which was engineer. So before that, he was an engineering technician, but he wanted to go for the role of engineer, which all his work and experience in the company showed he was capable of, but he didn't have the degree yet. Usually engineers have a degree, right? So some of the people in the company were saying, but Elias, you haven't got a degree, so you can't go for this position. And other people in the company were saying, but he is an engineer. Look, you can see that he's an engineer. He can do this
Yeah.
job and he'd be great at it. So they had this kind of, you know, two-party vying for what was needed for this role. And he went for it anyway, because that's what he's like. And he did the interview and the presentation, all the rest of it, the presentation and everything. And actually what they did was remove the the clause from the job description that said you had to have a degree, because they knew that he was applying and he'd be
I
good for the
love
job.
that.
Isn't that
I love
fabulous?
that because
And
even in a place where it seemed like that wasn't possible, like
yeah,
to be able to just bring that awareness or that challenge, and to make people think, oh, hang on a minute, but we know this person, we know their work, we know they can do everything we're requiring practically of the job. Let's
yeah,
question this
yeah.
bit.
Yeah,
I
do we
love
need a
that.
bit of paper? It was really
Yeah,
good. And I loved that whole story, that and the fact that he pushed for it anyway and he was confident, and the fact that he had allies as well in the company who were saying, look,
yeah,
we can see what you can do. Yeah, it was really good. And of course the degree was in process.
yeah.
Um so yeah, it's been really interesting to see how he's kind of forged that pathway. Um, and he's still very much, I would say, a project-based learner. He's got always so many interesting things on the go. He's doing up a house, and has huge confidence in that. He's kind of, he's doing it all, electrics, plastering, and he'll sort of pull people in to help him with different jobs and then work alongside them and learn. Um, sometimes I think back to myself at that age, and yeah, just the confidence that he has, and the networking ability, the ability to just draw people alongside him and learn from them. It's really cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. I love it.
Yeah.
And it isn't
Yeah.
that different to kind of what we're doing with them when they're younger either. That kind of finding people that can come alongside them and help them with whatever their current interest is, or just bringing in different aspects, or even just like having a go. Oh, I don't know
Yeah.
how to do this. Let's have a go at it.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
not
And
that.
how can I find out?
Yeah,
Who can
how
come
can I find out?
alongside
Who
me
can
and
I
show
connect
me?
with?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
and I love
Yeah.
it that you can still see those kind of skills, I guess we call them meta skills, meta skills
Yeah.
that are actually um kind of key to how he's living his life
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Oh, I
That's right.
get all
And I
excited.
always wanted the boys to be, one of our objectives with unschooling was that they would be lifelong learners, and that they would see themselves as learners, that whatever they want to learn, they can learn it. We have that capacity, we have that capability. It doesn't matter how old you are. If I wanted to go and get a GCSE in, I don't know, chemistry now, I could, couldn't I? I could study for it, I could go and get it. And I think, I see that in the boys. I see this yeah, this openness. So like, my eldest Elias is like, yeah, okay, I need the BEng, so let me see how I can acquire that. Okay, I need to learn how to plumb my shower in. So how can I learn that? Who can I get alongside? How can I YouTube, fantastic resource for things
Yeah.
like that. They learn such a lot from, I mean, YouTube is amazing um for learning so many different things. Um yeah, so you see these kinds of skills, the skills, the learning skills that they've been experiencing their whole lives coming, you just continuing really, um, coming to fruition, if you like, in early adulthood. It's really good. Yeah,
Yeah. And it's kind of like them taking those skills on independently as well, because obviously when they're younger, we spend a lot of time kind of modeling those skills or doing those skills alongside them, or creating space where where they can explore those skills, but maybe in a slightly more immature way. Like they're not always successfully
no,
implemented
true.
skills. So to kind of see those things being used more successfully with more maturity, um, and I'm not a great fan of pushing independence, but for them to be able to use those skills themselves, independently.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And with
yeah,
that intrinsic motivation, it's the motivation that's coming from them to say, actually, now I want to do this. I need to learn this. It's this, it's, having them in the driving seat of their own life, if you like, their own learning. That I think is really powerful. It's funny actually, because when you're talking about practice projects around our house, we've got quite a trail of projects that Elias did when he was at home and much younger. These experimental projects that kind of didn't go so well. I live within my house, for example. Our bathroom door is I call it the Hobbit door because it's very wonky, where he once tried to plane the edge of the door and I don't remember how old he was, but it wasn't a great job. And we've got this gate as well that's very wonky, where Elias had the job of trying to hang this gate. And now he's in his own house doing everything so nice. And I'm like, oh yeah, we've got all the kind of younger attempts at
the
learning
memories.
skills. Yeah. It's quite funny.
Yeah,
Anyway,
we've got lots of uh, half done projects everywhere. Not furniture projects, I have to say, not DIY, but half made art stuff, half
yeah, yeah.
painted projects, and we're quite
Yes,
crafty
project.
in our house. So those sort of half uh, projects.
Yeah, and it's hard
Yeah,
sometimes
lie
when
on
you
them.
see I remember sometimes I'd get quite frustrated with the boys because I'd have all these sort of projects that were not quite finished, and I'd be like, are we finished with this, or are we still working on it, or what are you doing with this now? It's been there for quite a few weeks. And it's interesting, isn't it, how sometimes what a child or what a young person is getting out of a project isn't what we think. So we might be looking for the end result, something polished or finished. I don't know. Maybe that's what we're used to trying to work towards. But for them, they, what they're getting from that project might be completely different. And actually, when they get to the point where they've extracted from that project what they needed, that's it. They'll park it. And then, then you're like, what was that about? And sometimes you don't always know. You don't always see.
No.
And then sometimes that will spark something else that emerges later. You'll see a skill picked up somewhere further down the line. You don't always see it at the time. So that's quite interesting as well.
It is an interesting reflection. I think a lot more goes on that we don't know about and aren't aware of, um, than the things that we can see at the
Yeah.
time. But like you say, like sometimes looking back, we can see threads, little threads or little things that like keep cropping up again and again, and it does begin to make more sense. But that you can't foresee those things. You just have to, at the time, trust that
Trust.
something. Yeah, trust. I
Yeah.
know it's a hard one. Trust that something is
Yeah.
happening, because it's not always really, really obvious what that is, and often our children can't articulate that either. You can't ask them. They're just like they just know this interests me. I'm really into this, and now I'm done.
Yeah.
But they can't
Yeah. No,
articulate, what it,
what it is.
yeah,
No.
what it is. So it is, and I think one of the things talking about, our children going into adulthood and having like an end product, like sometimes people, like you can see like adulthood as the end product. Yes, we've made it. Our children have found a place in the world, and congratulations. Like it feels like a finish line, but actually it's not. Like you were saying about this lifelong learning, actually it's always evolving, it's always changing. There's always going to be kind of the next thing, or the next evolution,
Yeah.
um, for
And I
them
think
as
it's true,
well.
isn't it? Because we don't really arrive. We're always having to adapt and move forward and change. And it was interesting actually. My husband last year, um, he's been wanting for some years to make a career change, and it's been quite difficult. Um, he was a teacher for a long
He
time.
has also been on the podcast and talked about
Yes,
maths
he
in
has.
unschooling, so
That's
people can
right,
go check
Matt.
that out as well. So I'm plugging all the episodes today.
That's right. Yes, he has
Yes,
Yes, as a maths
you
teacher.
should
Yeah,
go and
talking
meet
about
him.
unschooling maths. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
He has. Yeah, so he was wanting to move away from teaching and into something different. And he's always had an interest he's quite techie. He's always been quite interested in engineering and um yeah, and so you know how sometimes sons follow traditionally, like back in traditional communities,
Yeah,
sons might have
back in the
followed
day.
their father into a line of work. And so what's happened in our family, which I love, is that he's followed our son into the engineering world. And it's almost as if our son's involvement in that field and the kind of pathway he's blazed in this company opened a door for his dad to come in to that field as well. Um, and that was a whole learning process for my husband of having to learn a whole new area of knowledge, learn all about battery manufacture um go through that whole interview process and our son supporting him in that. So that's another example, isn't it, of how all of us actually are lifelong learners. We're all having to level up. I think the way the world is and the way technology is moving and everything changes so quickly, we have to be open to change and to learning. Um, and so yeah, so I think as parents we model that. We model that as well.
You see, that's really interesting, because I think there are lots of things we model, but I think there's also lots of things we learn from our
Oh yes.
children
Oh yeah.
who, well, a little bit like we were saying in the beginning, who so easily fall into, no, I don't want to do that. I'm good doing this over here. Thank you very much. No, I don't want to do whatever you've got planned, that activity, and I don't want to finish that piece of I don't know, whatever we're building or making or creating. I want to move on to this. There's so much that our children kind of teach us and like lead us in. And almost when you talk about that, I think the the ease at which our children don't commit to this. Oh my gosh, I have to have a GCSE and I have to do this and I have to do that. And the ease at which they kind of go, I'm going to try this. This is what I'm interested in. I'm going to go for an interview there. Yes, I know I don't have what they want on the criteria, but I'm doing it. I say ease, but they just, yeah. And the way that they do that, I actually think, and I that's what that reminded me of there, when your husband kind of changing career. It's not the first time I've heard of unschooling parents going, hang on a minute, this career I'm in isn't for me, or this, I don't know, the place I'm living, the place where we're living, actually this doesn't suit us. This isn't how we want to be in life, and how it can actually lead adults to make changes.
Change. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's right. Yeah. Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's amazing how I think our children lead us in that freedom actually. And I'm thinking about my because my second son had a very different pathway and experience because he wasn't ever as I suppose with my eldest he always wanted to be an engineer. He was kind of quite decisive about that. And for people who do kind of know what they want, that's a great gift, isn't it? But not all of us do, however old we are. And my second son, it was kind of harder for him. He didn't really know what he wanted to do. Um, but I think sometimes they kind of know what they don't want to do. And after from 16, he kind of was like, I don't really know what I want to do. He thought he might try working in retail for a bit. So he went and got a job at Next and he was there for a while, but he didn't love that. And then he was kind of, so that was then, okay, I know I don't want to do that, but I'm
Mm.
not still not really sure what I do want. So there was a kind, there was learning in that, even though that wasn't something that went anywhere really, there was still a lot of valuable learning for him in terms of what he did and didn't want, what he didn't enjoy, how he didn't like working. It was sometimes the dead ends are valuable.
Yeah,
Um, and he ended up from that applying for an apprenticeship um as a event technician. And that's the he's gone into events um as the sort of technical person who sets up all the tech
yeah,
and he's ever so good at it. He's such a good people person, really very personable and gets such a lot of positive feedback from companies that he sets up the events for and it's really suiting him. So he did an apprenticeship as well, which was again very practical, very hands-on, liked being in the workplace. Um, some good guys who sort of mentored him and then from that he got a job at our local university actually in the conferencing team in events. And it's so interesting. And he said to me when was it? About 6 months ago, from nowhere really, he says, "Oh, I'm looking at flats. I think I might move out." And that came from nowhere really, just this curveball that I wasn't expecting, where suddenly there was like, you're thinking about moving out, okay. But he felt then that was the time for him. He was ready to do that. Um, and it's been not a straightforward path for him, I wouldn't say. There's been a lot of uncertainty where he hasn't quite known. But going at his own pace and in his own time, he's found his way. Um, so yeah, so we've only got two at home now out of
well,
four. It's very quiet. Yeah.
all mine are still at home.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like I like that word suddenly because like my 18-year-old, I mean maybe there was something in the water about 6 months ago, but it was about 6 months ago. Um and there was a real shift in him. Like he's been through an extended period where like he's had a very few very intense interests and projects that he's working on and a small very small group of friends who he gets on really well and life has been very much those few things for quite a few years and he's been very happy with it and then suddenly he just kind of said to me I've seen an advertising for a volunteer at the local nature centre, nature reserve near us, and I'm going to apply for it. And I had no idea he was even looking. I mean, like I said, he's 18, so he's very self-directed. He's able to navigate those things. But I had no idea he was even looking. Um, it was going to involve him kind of leaving the house and doing something completely brand new for him, something that he's not done for years. It wasn't even related to any of the things that he'd been doing for the last couple of years. And that was it. He was up. He went and filled out an application form, went and met them, job done. And now he volunteers there. And but like it was suddenly, like, and it was really left field.
Yeah.
He's still living at home though. So it's not that, you know,
That
that's
curveball will come one day.
curveball. That's, you know,
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah. It
different
is
lesson.
interesting, isn't it?
I
Because
feel the emotional response almost like, ooh.
yeah.
So this is the part where I'm going to tell you about the Unschooling Village Hub. I wonder if that's something that you've heard of yet. It's a membership group I run for community, but also inspiration and peer support. Members get access to regular teaching and coaching workshops, self-care sessions, because taking care of you is really vitally important to your unschooling, and lots of practical resources for unschooling in your family. It's packed with value, events, and compassion. The best bit is it's only £20 a month with no ongoing contract. You can simply stay as long as you need us. You can find out more by checking out the link in the podcast description or heading over to the website liveplaylearn.org and sign up there. And we very much look forward to welcoming you into the Unschooling Village Hub. We're here for you wherever you are on your unschooling journey. And now, more from the podcast.
I always found with unschooling though that it's never linear, is it? It's always, there are kind of sudden like sudden leaps in understanding or development, and then plateaus, and then there'll be another sudden leap in something. And I always found that really interesting, the way it went. It was never, I think sometimes we expect children's progress to just be very linear,
And
and
of course, progress is like all the thing now when you're responding to your local authority. It's all about the progress. They want to know about
they want to know
the
that
progress, and it's not that linear. It's not that
linear.
linear
No.
thing that they want to see or that's actually happening. Of course, over the course of a longer period of time, there is always moving forwards and development and all that. But like you say, you don't get there in this incremental pathway that just is steadily going up all the time. That's not what it looks like. And then suddenly they throw you a curveball, and they want to move out. I'm,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm feeling very happy about that, Alice. I'm not ready. I'm not ready for that.
Well, no, I don't know if you're
How
ever
do you
ready for that. I think that what I loved about it, though, was the fact that it happened in his timing, that
Yeah.
when he felt ready to do that, he was able to take the step rather than us having to push it earlier, or, the same way as when, do we feel children are school ready at 4, or, often no.
No.
And it's similar actually when they're emerging into adulthood, is that we don't necessarily want to push them just because they're a certain age. I liked the fact that we could just let things emerge as he felt ready. And with, as I was saying earlier, with having them in the driving seat of their own kind of journey, um, when he said it, yeah, it was a curveball to me, but it felt right actually. Because I could see that he'd really considered it and he felt really ready. And that was really, I think, empowering for him and for me actually, because I felt like um it was good that he had the agency to move at his own pace. Yeah, it was
Yeah, I
good.
like that. And I think we see that a lot when we're unschooling, particularly people that have done it for a long time, or have done it with multiple children. They come to things in their own time. They come to reading when they're ready. They
Yeah.
can, you know, so and some lifestyle choices that are common among unschoolers, like long-term breastfeeding or co-sleeping, that actually our children, you know, are, just in case anyone's wondering, you know, our children do move on and sleep in their own spaces when they're ready to. We don't need to force them to be according to somebody else's developmental timeline, milestones, uh, and that does include like this, and you know this, you know, when we get to this part of that journey as well, we don't need to. We can, like you said, like we did with the GCSEs, you know, you can say this is available to you now. These are now options for you because of where you are and the age that you are. And these are all, you know, these are new things that are opening up because of that. But it doesn't have to be forced upon them. They can access those things if and when they
Yeah.
want to, and they can.
Yeah.
I'm going to bravely say they can stay at home as long as they want to. I might change my mind if I'm still doing the podcast in 10 years and they're still here. I might be ready then, but you
Yeah.
never know.
They
Who
can
knows?
stay, but they probably won't.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. We've still got two at
Oh,
home. So my 19-year-old he's still at home, but he's working as a tennis coach. So again, a very different passion, interest. But his work really has emerged from his engagement with his local tennis club. Um, he's always been a part of that tennis club, and it's been a really important community for him. So the mentorship that he's found there, the opportunities to develop as a coach, you know, has naturally kind of become his job. So that's a different, you know, again, a different pathway into work, but again, one that I feel unschooling helped facilitate really. Yeah, particularly he always says the best thing about being unschooled was the time that he had to pursue his interest, which was always tennis, sport particularly. Yeah, that the just the time that it gave him. And I do think that's helped him to know what he loves. You know, he likes working outside, he likes being active, you know, important things to know about yourself.
yeah, because I imagine that for people that are like being outside and active, particularly, would find jobs that they might be shoehorned into, like desk jobs, deeply, deeply unsatisfying and uncomfortable as well. Like if you need to, if you're someone who physically needs to move, that's not gonna, it's
No,
not gonna be fulfilling, is it? And
no.
actually, you know, almost the other, almost detrimental, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think it's important. I kind of envy them in a way because I didn't. I'm, you know, I'm 50 and I still still don't know what I want to do. And I feel like unschooling has given me as well that opportunity, if you like, to appreciate just how different we all are, and to allow ourselves to accept, I guess, accept that diversity, um, and to kind of embrace, you know, so many different opportunities rather than just the things that I felt were presented to me as a young person. I mean, it's a very different world now,
It's a
but
very different world. But I think, you know, when I think about the things that I was presented with, you know, it was kind of, this will say a lot about the kind of school I went to. Lawyer, doctor, librarian was on the list.
oh,
Um, yeah, those sort of things. And one of the things I've done from when my children were really young, for my own reference, is to really take notice of what people are doing for a living. Like how are adults, you know, kind of employed in the world, and coming to
yeah,
realize that the there's so many options.
yeah,
Like going to your careers
yeah,
counselor in 1995 was never going to really open up that world and say, look at what's available.
No,
Um,
that's
and
right.
and doing that for myself has made me less worried, I guess, about what the possibilities are for my children, because actually there are so many options, that no matter what my children are interested in, there's going to be somewhere that they're going to be able to offer their skills and their abilities, and have those honoured in some way, and they being able to contribute to the community, the world, on some level, no matter whether they're interested in being physical and out in nature, or whether they're techie and engineering. There's going to be something for them. And if there isn't, they'll probably make us, they'll
Yes,
probably create
they'll
their
create
own,
it.
they'll create it, you know,
Absolutely.
because that's kind of what's happened very rapidly over the last, well, even 10 years, 10, 20 years. There are jobs now that did not exist when my children were born. So the idea that we can send them to school at 4 and prepare them for a future career in this day and age is a little bit ridiculous, because actually the careers that are available now for for children who are 4, by the time they get to adulthood, it's going to be a completely different landscape, completely different options for them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so right, isn't it? Yeah. I remember saying when my boys were, well, when we were just considering taking them out of school, and one of the issues for my eldest son was with writing. Writing was a real bugbear. He just really struggled with writing enough, writing it neatly enough. He was always missing his playtime because he hadn't done it right. And as a result, he hated writing. He used to tell me, I hate writing. And I was so gutted because I love writing and I just felt so sad about it. Was one of the reasons we took him out. But I remember saying to my husband, so this was like 2010, and I said, by the time he leaves school, computers will be writing for us. We'll be talking to them and they'll write it down. Um, and I think to myself now, yes, that's it's true, isn't it? Like
It
the
is.
hours that children spend handwriting, and you just think, why? Why are we doing that when technology is it's so different now? Um,
Yeah, I had a conversation today with a local family, and she was saying that her daughter, who must be 12 or 13 now, I might have got that wrong, because you know how children age in the that you've known for like
yeah.
10 years, and suddenly you're like, oh, are they not 8? No, they're 14. Oh, got that wrong. But I'm sure I'm sure she's about 12 or 13. And the mother was saying how much she loves stories, but she's really good at telling stories, but can't write them down. It's like she can't write at the speed that she's
That
trying
her
to
brain's working. Yeah.
go at. Yeah, that her brain's working at. And we were talking about, how we used to like have dictaphones. My dad had one and he would lend it to us. And we used to have dictaphones and say things. And then you would transcribe it and it would take you forever. And now, of course, we're like, well, you can just grab a piece of technology where you tell the story and record it and it transcribes it.
Yeah.
And you might have to do some editing because you're between spoken English and written English. But actually it's transcribing for you. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
more
That's right.
accessible, I guess. If you are struggling with the writing aspect, you can still create a story and have it committed to words on a page,
Yeah.
through the development of from dictaphone to
Yeah.
transcribing apps.
That's
Yeah,
right. I think what there is now, when you think about the way that AI is coming in and,
yeah,
everything's going to change again. And I just think that that whole vision that we held that our children would be lifelong learners and that they would remain curious and open to learning is key. I mean, we need, people, don't we, to be adaptable,
yeah,
um, to be open to exploration and change, creative, collaborative, those four C's of 21st century learning. What are they? Creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, communication. Are the
Let's go
four.
with that.
Let's go with
I
that.
don't know.
Yeah,
You're making me think.
more important than like, numeracy, literacy, those sorts
See,
of
yeah.
school subjects. Skills,
Yeah,
skills.
skills. Going back to that idea of skills rather than knowledge. The knowledge is acquired, and we have
Yes.
the capacity for that, but developing those lifelong skills is
Yeah.
really
Yeah. Yeah. And
key.
keeping that curiosity and that spark alive. And that kind of
Yeah,
appetite for life, you know?
yeah, yeah. Which kind of gets kind of like connotations with like mental health. Like you're looking at like um, that appetite for life that you're talking about, and being self-motivated and being curious and having that light turned on, that's to do with living kind of like an abundant and joyful life. Um, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I am going to recommend that people go back and find the previous podcast. So I think the first one that we had a chat about was our teenagers. I'm sure it was that one first. And the second one we talked about was community. And one of the things that you probably haven't noticed you've done during our time together on this episode is mentioned in fact 3 times with your 3 stories about your older sons. You've mentioned about the people that they're working with, and the mentors they've had, and it's really those relationships and the community that we build are really key, I think, to doing things differently. When we're not being standardized and not saying I have to have this and tick a box and then go and have an interview with a random person that I don't know, and they've only got what's on piece of paper. But actually, when you know people and when you've been working with them, and when you're able to reach out and build relationships, and community, it makes a massive difference, and it has that personal element, has an impact on how we can how our children move uh, forward and move within communities and in the world. So the second episode that we did was on communities, our little unschooling, home ed, local uh, communities. And a little bit like you said about in the beginning, knowing people that are a little bit ahead of you, who had older children. Um, we're talking about your children and my children and how they're moving into adulthood. But locally, I know, my eldest is 18, so I now know quite a number of young people, 18 to say 28, who have been unschooled. And I'm just going to echo what you said. It was massively beneficial to me to be able to see how that kind of worked and how they went before and kind of go, oh, look, they're doing all right. It's all working out. It's very encouraging. So go and check out the episode on community, and then the third one is the one that your lovely husband came and did on
Yes.
maths and
Math.
unschooling maths. It's really, really popular. I do sometimes look at the stats on the podcast. It's a really popular one. Numeracy for unschooled children, so you can go and take the advice and the words of an unschooled dad, but also a mathematician.
Yeah.
It's full of really beautiful wisdomous. That's a word, by the way. Wisdomous,
I like that.
wisdomous wisdom. So there's 3 more episodes that you can go and listen to. I'll try and remember to put the links in the show notes and to make them easy to find. Thank you so much, Alice, for coming on the podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure, definitely.